Hi there, and welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Podcast. My name is Patrick Francie, and I am your host, and I want to begin by saying thank you for listening. On this show, I am having conversations with seemingly ordinary individuals who have achieved some amazing and extraordinary results in both their life and business. My intention is to inspire and help you learn and grow by having my guests share their journey of how they face and overcome their challenges, but also how they celebrate their many wins. And now, let's get on with this show and have a conversation with today's guest. My guest today, Dr. Traci Lynn, is known as the $100 Million Woman and is a legendary entrepreneur who transformed a mere $200 into a $100 million direct sales dynasty with her brand, Traci Lynn Fashion Jewelry. She's renowned for empowering thousands of women around the world and has grown her company to one of the largest in the direct sales industry with nearly 100,000 consultants. Her achievements have earned her a spot among the top 50 direct sales companies in the U.S., and she's been featured in Essence, Black Enterprise, and the Huffington Post. As a celebrated speaker and role model, Traci inspires with her journey of resilience, excellence, and a dedication to helping others achieve success. She is now on a mission to help female entrepreneurs take their life and business to the next level so they can live the life they've always knew they were created to live. Listen in on an amazing conversation. Enjoy. Traci Lynn, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Traci, listen, you've got a huge bio, and I always start with my guests the same, which is the truth. Bios never do justice to what any of my guests have accomplished, what they're all about, what they do. And sometimes bios are never even current with what's going on in their world, given the changes that they're making in their life. So, Traci, when somebody meets you for the first time and says, Dr. Traci, what do you do? What's your answer to the question these days?
Yeah, so my answer today is I help women bulletproof their business.
Wow, that's short and sweet. Now, you're very accomplished as an entrepreneur. So let's unpack first how you get to a place where you're helping women entrepreneurs bulletproof their business, I think is what I heard you say.
Yes.
And, you have a pretty significant background yourself in your journey as being an entrepreneur. I think you've, hit that $100 million in sales or beyond even. And I'd like to understand a little bit more about that journey and what got you there. And let's start there. And then we're going to get into how you're supporting and how you're making a difference in women's lives as they go on their entrepreneurial journey and build their businesses. So Let's start there.
All right. So I am a entrepreneur. Of course, I would say from at least the time I was 24. By the time I was 25, I had already made my first $1 million. And by the time I was 27, I lost that first $1 million. So that is the early part of the journey. And it was in direct sales. So I've had 3 iterations of the same exact business. Most people would stop when one didn't work, but I started it again and again. Each time I got better in the business, I learned things. I actually stopped one time, became a professional speaker. Another time, when I stopped, I bought franchises, 3 franchises, because no one ever taught me. I didn't come from money. I didn't see money in my family, even though my grandmother taught me entrepreneurship from the time I was 4 years old. She sold clothes and accessories out the trunk of her car. So I got a good look at an entrepreneurial lifestyle, but I didn't see it on a large scale. So I bought one franchise, a second franchise, and I was doing a great job. So the franchisor actually gave me a 3rd franchise, and I learned systems, processes, and strategies. Those were the 3 things I was missing in all of my iterations of my early days in Traci Lynn Jewelry. Systems, processes, and strategies. So I needed to see it done on a large scale. I did. So by the time I sold those franchises, I bought the property. I was always interested in real estate. So I bought the property and I started the 3rd iteration. And that's the iteration that got me to 100 million.
So there's lots of things there. A couple of threads I definitely want to pull on. When you talk about Traci Lynn Jewelry, now, was this your design? Was this part of the franchise that you bought? What was the jewelry all about?
So the jewelry was my design eventually. So when I first started, it's like other people, where do you begin? So I began private labeling the jewelry. So I just had jewelry that I could private label. So we put our tags on that jewelry. I did that for a while. And then I got into catalogs, making a catalog. The problem was I made my first catalog. And by the time the catalog came out, I couldn't get any of the jewelry anymore. And went out of business and came back the third time after I bought a food dessert franchise. So the franchises were something else totally outside the realm of jewelry, had nothing to do with it, but it had everything to do with systems, processes, and strategies.
I think, when I think about my own journey as an entrepreneur, I'm just breaking 40 years as an entrepreneur myself. And, those lessons can't be learned soon enough, I guess. And they're often learned the hard way, as, you learned. But, when you go back to kind of some of the roots of getting started, you were talking about your grandmother. I often ponder the question, is entrepreneurship, is it nature or is it nurture? You got your early introduction to it, I guess you will, we could say, with your grandmother, small scale, and that's kind of probably what she did for many years, but that was your first taste of being an entrepreneur, and then you went on that journey. Now, a couple of things around, I guess, the part where you failed, or we would consider it a failure. Probably at the time you went, oh man, I crashed, I burned, and then the tenacity to keep on going. In that moment, I would be interested, what keeps you going? I've certainly had my challenges over the years. I'm wondering for you, Traci, is that you picked yourself up, you dusted yourself off, and you went back into the ring. So do you have a recall of what was going on for you at that time that got you going again? Why didn't you go get a job?
Well, what got me going again was that I was on a job and I was falling asleep at my desk, and I was only, at this point, 26 years old in that time period. And every time I go back, I'm falling asleep. So I cannot imagine sitting at that desk for like 30 more years. How could I do it? And I felt that I was still young enough to take a chance on myself again. And I grew up in a household raised by my mother and grandmother, no silver spoon, but they had belief. They always told me that I could do it, that I could do anything, that I, was special. I mean, we're all special to our parents, but they made me believe it. So I was willing to take a chance. And there was one time in between when I stopped the last time, I was so discouraged by the women that I was helping. I heard them having very bad conversations about me. I heard it with my own ears, and it got into my heart and it became poison. And it was almost 8 years later before I began. So it's not like I picked myself up overnight. I changed course and went into the franchise business. And eventually I went back because the jewelry was my passion. I knew how to do it. And it was something inside that just, I believed I wasn't finished with it. And I had to do it again, or I would regret it for the rest of my life.
Now, you think about what you were, suggesting and talking about your grandmother and your mother, kind of always encouraging you. I think there's something to be said for, the confidence that we gain from those words from our parents, in your case, a grandparent that was there saying, you got this, you're smart enough, you're good looking enough, you're beautiful enough, whatever the story is. But that is where we kind of borrow confidence and we keep getting back up and we keep going. When you think about, probably now thousands of women, for sure, many hundreds of women that you've worked with, do you see that as a common theme or a common part of maybe what the difference is between some women as they go through or go on their entrepreneurial journey? I think it's that way for men or women, but, in your experience of working with so many women, When you listen to their stories, do you see the difference that that makes for women who have had that background of family supporting them that much?
Well, it's very interesting. This is how keen you are, because people don't pick that up. I say that same story all the time. You're the first one that really dialed in, because the truth is that is the difference.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't have that support, the journey to belief takes a much longer time. It's a much more difficult path. When I look at the women that I even coach today, the ones that are currently in my high coaching, high profile program
Mm-hmm.
are the people that had that support.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that have the same potential as the other women, but they're not there yet, is because they didn't have that support. They were told quite the opposite in their life. So there is a direct correlation between what you hear and the family support and not getting that support.
It's such an important message, I think, Traci, is that when we consider the impact parents can have, but, sometimes what we bump up against, or what parents bump up against, is they've got their own story, they're living in their own past, and they're looking at the world through their own set of filters, and many haven't done necessarily that development work. So then they're guiding their children based on what they know, what their filters are, what their past story is, rather than look at their children and go, live into your brightest future. We don't know what your future is going to be, but you got this. Whatever your future is, let's design it together today. And, it's not that big a difference, but it's huge in terms of the impact. And so it is interesting that when somebody like yourself, who is working with entrepreneurial women, I'm sure you come across, all-stars like yourself who are just driven, and they have their own kind of backstory, and they're looking into their own future. And then, of course, they'll pass that on to their children as well, I hope. And that would be the story that would be kind of ideal to hear. So when you're looking at, what you've done, and I want to go back a little bit to, you bought originally a line of jewelry, and then you went on to design your own jewelry. Was that kind of design component always there for you? Were you an artist, or like as in drawing art or painting art, or were you a vocalist? Was there something, what was the creative spark in you that could actually see that, or just to come with experience?
It came with experience. I don't draw, I don't sing, I don't play instruments. And if you were to ask me, I would tell you that I am more left brain. I'm the thinker, not the creator, but that's not true. I'm extremely creative. I learned that. And I learned style. My grandmother, oh my gosh, her style was off the charts. That's why she did so well, selling her clothes and accessories. So I was there when she was shopping. Now, I might have been hiding in the racks in the middle of the store, but back then it was more safe. You could do that as she shopped. But I picked up style from her and how to do it. So that's why I never even thought about the component of designing. But in order to carve out my own niche in the jewelry industry, I had to become a designer. So I had to travel overseas many times to design. And not only design, so we have, I have 34 trademarks, and I actually have 30 patents. So I have 15 granted patents, 15 provisional patents of things that I actually designed. So I grew into it, and especially a patent can take years to get. And I was granted 15 of them. And that happened over time. I didn't wait until I had all the trademarks. I didn't wait. This is what I'm telling you this because this is what people do. I got to get my trademarks first. I got to get my patents first. I don't want anybody to copy it. Well, won't we get proof of concept before we invest that kind of money in a trademark and in a patent? Let's be sure that this is a viable business before, because even with my first trademark, I didn't hire an attorney. I did it myself. Thank goodness I did it right. But I read the directions and I did it. But I did it based on knowing at this point in my third iteration that I had something that was going to work. Even though it was the same name, everything was the same, but I got the formula. And then I trademarked.
So it's interesting around that is that so many people get stuck trying to build a baby grand piano when really all they need is a player piano. That's the analogy I always draw. Forget about an end result, proof of concept. Just get your feet moving, get the deal moving, and then redesign, redesign, but keep moving forward. But the first thing you got to do is get moving. So many people just sit on the sidelines trying to perfect something, and they don't have proof of concept. Now, I know from experience that one. I know it very well. And I have, in fact, spent too much money, too much time, too much energy on a particular project only to have it fall flat when I could have just launched it, figured it out as I went along, and got it handled. And it was an expensive lesson, as it seems. I don't know. It seems my lessons are mostly expensive, Traci. I don't know if you've had that experience or not, but it is funny that way. Now, you talk about you made your first million when you're very young, 25, 26, whatever that age group was. But, you sit here today with, 100xing that. There's a big difference between a million and 100 million. Did you at some point earlier have a vision of those kind of numbers? Or did that just grow into that and you got some momentum and then you saw the possibility?
So this is me at the core. I saw the women becoming successful. I started with a few women, a few hundred, and I did everything organically. Even when I built the business, I never started nationally. If I couldn't drive to you, if I couldn't drive in the 3 states, you couldn't be in the business, because I had to go and develop the relationship. So that was the organic growth. And once I established 2,000 women in the business, all from driving distance, and that way I didn't have to worry about the attrition rate. That way I had longevity in the women, didn't have some of the things that were stopping other companies. I did my research as I went. I did all the training. I did everything up front so that I would know what it takes. And once I got to the 2,000 in my own drivable backyard, I realized we had something. So then it was 10,000 women. Then it was 15. Then it was 100,000 women. And my goal has always been to empower the women and partner with them. And if I could empower them, make them believe, like my grandmother made me believe, and empower them with product where they can make money, I gave them 50% of the profits. So that was a win-win. And when I focused on that, the numbers grew. And then eventually I stepped on the hockey stick for exponential growth. Didn't even know I was hitting it until I saw the bank account. Boom, 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 boom. Because I always focused on the people, and then the money would naturally follow.
You have said a couple of times now that you think about systems and, building a sustainable model is what's behind all of that, of course. And when you consider that scaling, what it takes to scale a business, especially given what you've done, has it made a big difference in terms of technology today? Has that been a big asset in terms of how you've grown, how you've been able to scale, number one? And then number two was, when did that shift start to happen in terms of even scaling using technology that we hit today?
So I started more like 2006. By 2008, I had software and I was in the cloud. I didn't even know what a cloud was, but they stored the server in their office. That was the cloud. So I had cloud-based software because then I had consultants in the 3 states and beyond. I did all my own software in Excel in the very beginning. My friend was an Excel expert. She did a program for me, and I used that until I could afford it. I had a number in mind where I needed to be to pay for proprietary type software that I needed so that I could have consultants have their own website. Even back in 2008, we weren't on the social platforms, but I had to have that software to keep the business running, to pay the commissions. So I understood that. So I always partnered with someone without trying to do everything myself. And then I read a book, I believe it was by old school book, Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. And there's like how many versions of the E-Myth today that he's written, but that revolutionized my thinking in terms of I don't need a whole department of hundreds of people. I need some good people, 8, 10, 15, who can do quite a few things. But the biggest thing that was so important to me is that I understood my core competencies. I understood my wheelhouse, and warehousing was not my wheelhouse. And I was failing miserably, losing so much money in warehousing. So I outsourced it. I got a 3PL early on. Third-party logistics set me free. They handled all that. I paid them. I could oversee it. It connected in. It was an API connection directly into my software. So I had visual eyes on what they were doing. And it came into my software every day, every couple of hours. We were golden. That made all the difference in the world.
Now, you've gone on to be an amazing coach and speaker and mentor, I'm sure, for, literally thousands of women. Now, when you consider your own journey, Traci, did you have a mentor? Now, it's interesting. You read the E-Myth. I read the E-Myth Revisited, by Gerber. And I mean, that was as well for me kind of life-changing. That was one of those kind of aha moments in my own business. And then when you look at the journey that you were on, did you have multiple mentors? Did you have somebody that you could tap into? Because, I didn't hear you say I went to university and got my MBA and then I started doing stuff with that. Like, how did you kind of figure these things out? Was it just by sheer tenacity? You read a lot, you figured stuff out as you went along? Or again, did you have a mentor along the way?
Unfortunately, I did not have a mentor. So I figured it out. So it cost me. So my franchise, $295,000. I actually got it on a discount. My first one is $75,000. Then the next one was over $200,000. So I used the experiences of other people. I always understood how to collapse a learning curve by studying the greats, by getting the franchises. I went the long, slow way, the most expensive way, but it paid off for me in the long run. And then I got mentors in, or I should say peers, in the direct selling association space. These were my peers doing the same thing, direct sales, but these were my peers of the Mary Kays. They were $1 billion brand at this point. The Amways, they were already $1 billion. And I got voted in to the board and then eventually to a seat in the executive committee. I was the vice chair, was the first Black person, woman, or man to ever hold that seat in a 100-year-old organization. And it came with quite a few privileges because I was sitting there at all the meetings with all the billion-dollar brands. So I got my mentoring that way.
So you listened really well. That's the key to all of that, isn't it? Now, when you go, Traci, when you look back and you kind of reflect on your history of meeting with those people and listening, was there a point for you where, given what you do, given your own history, there's a question we often use is, we ask our own clients is, are you coachable? Coachability is a really big deal because not everybody is. Egos get in the way. They're not really great at being coached because they don't understand where their ego will have them play small or just get in their way or whatever that story is. For you, do you see that, number one, as a common block for some of your clients even today, where they're just, for whatever reason, they maybe historically are not coachable? And back, one more question, which is to you. Did you have a defining moment, or were you just always a kind of an open vessel to learning and listening, or did you have to bust through that?
So to answer it, the first one, I see a lot of times I started to understand that there were people who were not coachable, trainable in my jewelry business. So I came across that very early, and there was nothing I could do. And I would try to get in the well and pull them out the well, and they didn't want to be pulled out. And then I could get stuck in the well. So I learned very quickly how to identify that and what to do about it. And so even in my programs today, that's the first thing I tell people. It's not just about it's not about your money. If you are not coachable, trainable, and teachable, there is nothing we will have. I can't help you. So I don't even want them to start. And I am that honest. about it. Because if you are not coachable, teachable, and trainable, what could I possibly pour into a already full vessel? And to be honest with you, I always knew my own shortcomings and what I didn't know, to the point that there were some times I felt very insecure to be the small fish in the room. And I had imposter syndrome. Like, do I really belong here? And am I good enough to be here? But I did bring something to the table and I learned that. But what I could do well, I was always a good student, just always open to learn. And I was a sponge with a photographic memory. I love learning even today. Went back to school recently, got a real estate license. Why? I love learning. I like real estate too, but I love learning. So I am that way naturally.
Would you call that your superpower? Or if you are asked what's your superpower and you think about it, what would it be for you?
My superpower would be my ability to see people and to inspire them at a very deep level. Nothing surface, not a few little words, but I can see. I can see and inspire people. That's just one of my superpowers. Another is that people underestimate me because I am a learner. I don't have to be the big fish. I don't have to do all the talking. I don't have to come in the room and announce myself. I can sit back and take it all in and be good with that. So that's also superpower.
So only because I asked you what your superpower is, I have to ask you what your kryptonite might be.
Competition, because I'm an extremist. I would have never known I am so competitive, because I see myself as this sweet girl.
Passive
yes.
Traci.
Yes. And I am very competitive. I'm into this gym thing now. So I don't just go to the gym. I go to the gym 4 to 8 days a week. I'm up at 4:20. I'm on the treadmill for an hour at 4:30 in the morning to 5:30. Then I'm in the gym at 7, training for. I'm just any strength taken to an extreme can be a weakness. And so I have this extremeness about me that I have to be very careful about.
Got it. That's a good awareness to have, I guess, as you go along, starting to understand what that might look like. When, there are those individuals, and you talk about being the ability to inspire. Was there a time where you always had a vision, or you had a vision that evolved? Were you great at painting that picture of that vision for people to buy in? Because I think all great CEOs have to be great salespeople. They have to be able to pitch that vision. And did you have that vision for the business and for others, that you could paint that picture? Was that a skill that you developed and that you saw the need for? Are you that I get the sense that that's who you are, but I would like to hear from you.
You are 100% correct. And thank you for giving me that, because from this podcast forward, I'm going to lead with that, because that is exactly who I am. When I was in college, I started a chapter of a national sorority, and there was no other sorority or fraternity. And I had to sell the women on the vision of the sorority. Some of them never even heard of it, and I had to sell them. And I got 13 women to start this sorority with me. And it's the only sorority still on the University of Michigan Dearborn campus to this day. We're celebrating 40 years, still going strong. And that, for me, was what we call the rock of Ebenezer. That's my rock, to show me I really do have a gift to sell the vision, to vision cast for other people to see it.
Now, when you think about, the success you've had, the revenue you've generated, and the money you've made in your life, and you're still very young. And even if you might consider yourself not young in years, you're young in mental and emotional and spiritual state. So when you look into the future, do you see, why are you still working? Why do you keep doing what you're doing? Or what is it going to look like when you're 70 years old?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I'm exercising so strong, honestly, because I don't want to shrink, bone density stuff. Honestly, I'm not finished. You've accomplished all these things, and do I sit back and just travel the world and not pour it out. I'm in what I call my pouring season. I've got to pour this back out to as many people who will listen, who will take it, who are coachable, and who can hear it. So as long as I have breath, that's why I went back to real estate school. I want to continue doing some things that will improve also my wealth portfolio and keep my mind sharp, but I've got to get it out. I've got to pour this out. I want so many people to follow in these footsteps. And I know how hard this journey is. I know what it takes, the bulletproof vest to just protect yourself, your heart, your mind, especially when you're doing it from not just a place of revenue, but a place of purpose. How do you really do it and keep your heart and keep your center? That's what I want to see.
So Traci, you know, in small business, one of the challenges that so many small business owners eventually bump up against, depending on their ability to have a vision, to see, and that is that, you know, are they entrepreneurs? Yes. Are they solopreneurs? Many. Are they business owners? There's the difference, of course, as Gerber would point out, is that, you know, do you own a business or do you own a job? How do you actually set yourself up for a future so that you have those key people? Can you walk away or step away from your business for an extended period of time and have it continue to grow and be successful without you being in it? And so when you look at what you've accomplished, you've obviously at many levels been able to do that with it, or whatever your core team might be. But do you see that as, you know, given with the many women that you work with, is that kind of part of your protocol going, I'm not here to make you a solopreneur or even an entrepreneur. I want you to own a business. I want you to be able to scale that business. Is that kind of the message that you get, or how do you get women past that?
I'm sitting here thinking, how do you know this? I'm honestly sitting here saying, how does he know? But that's 100% what I'm teaching. I want them to have scalability. Just like Gerber said, do you own a job? Even Robert Kiyosaki said that back in the day in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Are you self-employed? You own a job? Or do you own the business? Are you a corporation? So I teach corporation, and I'm not talking about whether you're an LLC or a C or S. I'm talking corporation in everything that you do in the business. So I am teaching that. I'm teaching scalability. I'm teaching how you can scale without taking on a whole lot of debt, a lot of employees, but how do you use strategic partners and plans to scale where you need to be? So 100%, that's exactly what I'm teaching now.
I think it's such an important message. Now, not everybody, again, has that thought process. I wish I would have learned earlier on, you know, that lesson. But having said all that, I've got zero regrets in terms of what I did and how I did it. I mean, it's always in hindsight and, you know, got, okay, we could have done better, could have been smarter, all the rest of the stories that we might have. So when I, you know, come up and I meet somebody like yourself and we have these conversations, you know, a lot of what I've learned has been, you know, later on. I was a slow study. I wasn't maybe as bright as you, and or I would have to say that I probably didn't or wasn't as open to learning as you are. And a lot of that, when I do my own self-analysis, if you will, I reflect, I go, yeah, I probably wasn't the greatest at being coached. I wanted to figure out stuff on my own. Again, who knows? I don't know why that was. It's just I noticed my own pattern over the years, certainly not been there for many. So it's interesting when I see somebody who comes that way, like you developed and evolved that way quite quickly. And I always admire that. I go, that's kind of cool. I don't know what fork in the road I would have had to achieve to get there. But anyways, I digress, not about me. I want to know a little bit about when you look at the vision that you create, do you actually, as much as you're going to the gym every day, do you spend as much time on your own personal development, your own professional development? Are you that individual that is actually bringing the subconscious into the conscious? Are you actually reflecting on your way of thinking and way of being? And are you defining yourself because that's a practice that you have in a regular kind of routine of how you operate?
Yes, 100%. And even going to the gym and being up that early when I don't have to be up that early at this stage. I don't have anything to get up that early. We're empty nesters, my husband and I. So there's no reason. But what happens is it allows me to constantly think, read new books, and always evaluate and remind myself of all the lessons, good and bad, because that's what I teach. I teach things that you need to avoid. If I had only known, if someone had told me. So always in that thought mode, always just constantly on my phone, writing down stories, all the lessons that I've learned. And still today, going to workshops, seminars, at least twice a month. I fly out to different programs. I've joined some other groups, and I'm in a mastermind myself. So always evolving, always.
It's such an interesting kind of point, I think, to make, is that a lot of people get in their way of wanting to go on that journey of investing in themselves. And, given the experience that you have when you're talking to individuals, we talked about, I often say I'm a coach, not a coax. So that goes back to, the story is that, we're not talking you into doing this. Do you really want to do this? Why do you want to do it? And you give all of those kinds of things. But it is really important to always be on the journey of learning, like you say. So when you're working with women, are you, beyond your own coaching, are you encouraging them to read specific books? Are you giving them guidance and saying, based on what I'm hearing you say and what I'm seeing, here's my suggestion? Like, where do you kind of unpack it yourself, and or have you got a great coaching team that's also supporting you in that regard?
No, and I don't really have a coaching team, but I do have a team that will just help me think through my thought process. But I'm always recommending books. I'm listening to them. I have some one-on-one. So my high profile group is very small, is less than 10, because that way I can talk to them about scaling, talk to them about things when they tell me their goals. I can also suggest some revenue ways to get there, maybe that they're not thinking about. And sometimes they're not quite open to. But in order to X the revenue, the way they're talking, I know that they're going to need some exponential kind of activity. And sometimes they don't want to receive it until the year goes by and they don't hit those numbers. Now they want to know about the other ways to get it. But I'm always suggesting a book, a seminar. I have one person that has 4 coaches. She can afford to do it. She wants access to information that most people don't have access to, and she's willing to pay for it. So that is the strategy. And especially when I get to the one-on-ones, and it's such a small group, in that particular group, I can really start to process and think about things that will help them, even not just coaches, but consultants. Sometimes they just need a consultant to help them get a project done. And so I used all those resources that I've gained over all these years, and I'm able to offer it to them.
We offer a coaching program that, not intentionally, it kind of showed up that way. It's called Clarity Equals Velocity. And it was really about individuals getting clear so that they could gain the momentum and have the velocity that they want, and looking at all the sticky spots, look at what they're operating on top of that they're not identifying. Anyways, the long and the short of it, it kind of turned into a couples thing, where we see where couples in a day-to-day basis, even though they're not in business together necessarily, but as a family, the communication breaks down. Somebody isn't quite telling everybody all the information, then get kids involved, and all of a sudden that clarity goes away, and within that clarity, or that lack of clarity, there's friction, and the friction being sticky spots and no flow and all the rest of it. So the reason that kind of long-winded intro into the question, which is, how important has your husband been in terms of being aligned with you? Was he in the business with you? How did that, as couples, my wife and I are both entrepreneurs. She's in a different business and she's doing different things. And, we're coming together now at this point in our lives and working together more. But for you and your husband, when you look at the women that you coach, how important are those relationships, and how important is your relationship with your husband in your success and the things that you've done?
Well, I have been married now going on 30 years in another few months. So we have worked together almost the entire time. And we worked in the same business, same office, and we had mutual respect. But the thing is, this is a jewelry business, and this was actually my business before I married him. So he took the responsibility. He had to find his way, his role in the business because I was the CEO and the founder, and he was good with the money part of it. So being the more of a COO type of role, not CFO, but more COO, and just making sure that things were done. He was good with handling the people stuff. People came to me for sympathy. He wasn't the one. So he would step in a lot of times. He was always there in those meetings to make sure that there was balance. And he brought a lot of balance to my life. And we had a rule. We didn't talk business after 8 p.m. After 8 p.m. at night, we made sure we had dinner. We had a child. We took care of family. And that brought me so much joy and a sense of, because if you ever ask a woman, there's no such thing as balance. That's why women keep asking, well, how do I balance? How do I balance? I haven't found that answer, but I have lived in the peace of the moment. And that has been everything to me, to make sure I am present at every stage of the moment of what I am doing, and my family and him and I being on the same accord, one mind, one accord, no calls, no business, no emails after 8 p.m. I mean, we weren't physicians. Who are we talking to after 8 o'clock? And what do we need to discuss? Because it could get heavy. And we used to do it. And then it gets heavy. Then you're mad all night. It was a bad scene. And I needed him to be my husband, first, even before my business partner. And so that's how we made it work. And even now, in this stage of our life, we're both real estate agents. We both got our license last year. And we did that together. And so now we've got something else together, but we can work together. We have our rules that we've had for almost 30 years. So we're best friends. So we know how to work together.
Well, that's interesting, though. That goes back to, the clarity in the rules, the clarity in how you operate together is so, so important. I know my wife and I, Stephanie, we debate, we get into, we can go hard at it and fight and do all the things that we do in business. But there's a fundamental rule, which is, we don't ever think about calling each other names. Like there's never anything personal about anything, right? It's always, we come to a conclusion that we don't always agree on things, but we're going to duke it out. We're going to debate it. We're going to have it out, but it's never, ever personal. That is one fundamental rule that we've always had. And although we don't have any hard and fast rules about when we quit talking business, we also are able to say, something, I'm done. I'm brain dead. I can't have this conversation right now. And we're good. Like we know, and we know, okay, got it. Understood. It's just an understood thing. Something that you mentioned, Traci, and I really want to kind of ask you this question. It's kind of a philosophy that I've adopted, and of course that's because I'm married to a Wonder Woman. But we start to understand that with women, particularly women, and men are that way often. We talk about balance, but I always use the analogy that women are the center of their universe, and we all are the center of our universe. But women particularly, because of the nature of women in general, they're always giving. They're looking after the kids first. They're looking after the husbands. They're looking after the in-laws. They're looking after so they're always kind of giving energy or pushing out energy. It's always outside of themselves. And one of the most difficult things I've discovered, or in my own experience of working with women, is that they often feel guilty when they look after themselves, when they give themselves time. Yet the lesson that in the coaching that I often give is you're no good to anybody if you're drained. And so how do you fill your energy bucket? How are you looking after yourself, whether that's some time off or some time at the spa or time hanging out with your best friends? What is it? What do you do to recharge, given that that's your nature? It's hard for them to get the fact that it's not selfish. They always feel guilty, that it's the most selfless thing they can do to take care of themselves so that they can actually do the things that they do as women. So I'll stop there before I get myself in trouble. But what's your kind of philosophy around that, Traci?
Well, what I always use is what the airplanes demonstrate so well. And what do they say? Put your mask on first. Get your air first. It does no good if you're going to make sure the kids got air and then you're going to pass out. So they say, put your mask on first before assisting others. So that has been, and as much as we hear it, when I say it, the women like, okay, I have to, because if you give from an emptiness, that's how you can become depressed, because there's nothing in there for you. There's no joy for you. So even as I'm talking about, yeah, I'm up early going to the gym, but the truth of the matter is, it's for me. I like the way I feel after. I like the way my body is starting to look. So there is a me component in that. It is for me. I am doing it. So I make sure. So it's not always the spa. You know, a lot of times for women, and women, we know that. So we'll say things, we'll get someone a spa thing or have a spa day. Sometimes it's a nice small day, walking around, not buying anything, just hanging out with a friend, having non-business conversation is a wonderful thing. A friend asked me, can you join my board? No. Can we just be friends? Then I realized we were never friends. It was all about me joining the board. So it's knowing where can you go. My mother and I like to look at model homes. So we go out for a day. That fills me up. Going to the gym that many times, I just got to be careful of my competitive side, but it's a cup filler for me. So I know the things that kind of fill me up. A good massage, I'm getting that now every week. Wasn't doing that before. And every time I get a massage, they always say, even now, your shoulders are always so stiff. Because I carry so much, even still, I'm still carrying. So it's a lifelong process as a woman to prioritize yourself.
Yeah, and I really wanted to share that because I want listeners, we have many women listeners, and I really want women to get that message. You know, I'm just a big believer, men or women, is, you know, if you are really understanding that as an entrepreneur, and we have so many entrepreneurs listening to the show, is that you don't need to run on empty all the time. So you have to ask yourself, what would fill me up? What will light me up? What will actually kind of energize me? Where do I go to get re-energized? And what does it look like? And to your point, you know, for women, if it's a spa day, great. If not, it's a workout. It's whatever it is that fills you up. And, you know, you're sharing about even going and hanging out with your mom and doing a day of, you know, going looking at model homes or whatever, or show homes, you know, whatever that story is. It works for you. And I think it's such an important message that so many just don't get. And then they do, in fact, burn out. They break down and they don't accomplish what they want to accomplish. Something that you said that, you know, triggered a question for me, and it's really recent that, again, it's kind of in my purview of conversations to have with somebody like yourself, is that you say yes to a lot of things, but over the years, have you come to the place where you realize that you need to say no more often than you say yes because of just what we were talking about? How much time am I going to put into this? How much energy am I going to put into this? Whether that's dollars and cents, mental, emotional, spiritual energy, whatever it is, time, and what's my return on the investment of that? And however you break it down. So when you look at how often you're having to say no, do you have a automatic filter now that it just goes through and you go, no? So how do you make those kind of decisions these days, Traci?
Because I've said yes too much, and I'm so full that I can't even think and I can't do anything for myself. And then I feel like I'm overwhelmed. And we as women, we will look at the calendar. Oh, it's a week out. I've got time in between, not realizing, no, you don't. Because that day is going to come and everything is going to be back to back. Every now and then you can do that. But if you're doing that all the time to make somebody else happy, that is the problem. And it's just like I said, people will ask me, Well, I really want you to be on this. And then when I say no, they're not ready. And this is what women, we've got to be okay about. Be okay with your no, because people will look at you and try to convince you. I hear them all the time. Well, it's not going to be that bad. I don't understand why you can't do it. Well, you don't understand my schedule. So I get that, but it's a no for me. I don't explain it. I don't give reasons behind it. And we as women, well, let me tell you why. Because I got to take Josh. I got to pick up John. Who? Why? Men don't do it. It's a no. It's a no. Women, well, we got to tell you why. Because then if I tell you why, you're going to understand it. And that's not true either. You're going to then try to find a way to help me solve what I'm saying, why I'm saying no. So now that I can say yes to you. So let's just end all of that with a no. I can't do it.
Traci, I love this conversation. And sadly, we're running out of time. And I'm definitely going to invite you back on the show. And I hope that you say yes. I won't put you on the spot today.
It's already yes. Put me on the spot. It's a yes. You have no idea how much I have enjoyed talking to you. You're very insightful. You know exactly where I'm going in my head and what I'm doing. So my answer is yes. You went.
Fantastic. Thank you. So as we wind down quickly, I'd like to have a couple of rapid fire fun questions, Traci, just to wind things down. So you ready for some rapid fires?
Absolutely.
And by the way, they're rarely rapid fire, so don't feel any pressure. But I'll ask you a couple of easy ones out of the gate. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Favorite book, now that I know one of your favorites was Gerber. Aside from that, what was one of your the most impactful book do you think that came onto you, or one that you recommend often?
Napoleon Hill, old school, Think and Grow Rich.
Gosh, that's so popular. Man, oh man. Do you have a favorite band or a favorite tune that you go to?
Well, not really. It's just, genres just changed over the years. So no, but something upbeat, something that'll get me to press a lot of weight on my legs. So whatever is moving fast, some good high energy music to match my pace, to push those weights up, that's what I go to.
Fantastic. Now, how about movie? Favorite movie?
Old school, Matrix.
Matrix. Oh, yes. Love it. Love it.
Yep. The original one, knowing that we've got all this in us, we're the one, and not even knowing we're the one.
Your room, your desk, or your car? What do you make sure is clean first?
My car.
Oh, you're a car gal. Okay, cool. Now, favorite swear word?
None.
Oh, you're one of those guests. Jeez.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I always feel, oh God, I'm not worthy. I often have guests that go, swear? No, I don't need to swear. You just got a much stronger command of the English language than I do, Traci. That's all I got to say. If God exists, what do you want to hear him say to you when you get to the gates?
Well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter into your rest. That's when I'll...
Beautiful. And Traci, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for my joy. I am so happy. I am so full. I feel so blessed. And I feel like I have been given such an amazing life. And I just want to share it back.
Beautiful. Now, Traci, only because you said that, and I love that answer, I'm going to ask you one more question. This is a bonus question. And you've made a lot of money. Would you be as happy if you didn't make as much money?
Yes. Yes, I would.
I suspected that would be the answer.
I made it and I lost it.
Yeah, I suspected that would be the answer. Beautiful. Traci, I am so grateful for you and the opportunity to speak with you. And I certainly do look forward to doing it again. And thanks so much for joining me on the Everyday Millionaire podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. If you found value in the podcast, please take the time to rate and review and share with others. Share with your friends. As it is my goal to always improve and to provide the highest value for you, the listener. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions you'd like answered, please email me at ceo@reincanada.com. That's ceo@reincanada.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, Patrick out.